The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are coming to you, not with the jargon of the day, we are coming to you from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home, we're going to do jargon of the day in a minute. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And we're getting down to it. This is our last week of shows, new shows for the year of 2019. Now next week we're going to be showing you, and the week after, the week of New Year's, we're going to be showing you some oldies but goodies, but it's our last week of new shows, so I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. Hey, we want to be with you for this next hour and be interactive. We really appreciate when you guys write in, when you talk to us, when you tell us what your questions, your concerns, and comments are, and so Traven's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate right now. There are lots of ways to watch the show and growing, and we're hoping in 2020 to bring you even more ways. But in most of the ways that there's usually an interactive component. We want you to know that you can be watching us on our own homepage, which is autism-live.com, and that is interactive. At the bottom, there's a chat. If you click on the little red button, it opens up a box, and you can write in. It's free. It's anonymous. I don't even get to know who you are, and nobody gets to see it except for me, and so I address your questions. And you can write that in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The rough thing is if you're not watching it live and I don't answer it live, then you got to know where I answered it. That's the hard part. So a lot of people prefer to have their questions answered on Facebook or YouTube because the record stays there, right? And so if I answer it later or during the show, then you have a record of, oh, she answered it during this question. So during this show. So, but the tough part of that is that people at least see the name that you're writing in under, which may not be your actual name, but So, but you can also write to me at my email, and I'm happy to tell you when I'll be answering the question or having an expert answer the question, because that's the other thing is that we have lots of experts on the show. I am not an autism expert. Let's be 100% clear about that. I care deeply because I'm an autism mom and a former school teacher, and I want for you to have the same I don't necessarily, it's not one size fits all. So it's not that I wish that you have what I have exactly, right? But I hope that you have the spirit of what I had, which is the progress that my child made. And so I want to help you to get to whatever that is. Again, not one size fits all. So it helps me if I know what it is that you're looking for, what it is that you need, right? That's sort of my deal. And we welcome everybody in the larger autism community here to be a part of this conversation. And this really is supposed to be a conversation that goes multiple different ways, right? But if you are an individual on the autism spectrum, of course, we welcome you to this conversation, but we also welcome all the people who love and care about you and want you to get to the progress that you so richly deserve, and all the people who want to fight very hard for you to have the dignity and the full life that you deserve as well. So that's where we're at. That's who I am. I want to be your cheerleader. I want to spur you on. We always say that we're about information and inspiration. I want you to know the good stories of the good things that are happening, not because we're negating all the things that are hard or they're difficult, because I'm happy to go there with you, because heaven knows there are parts of this journey that are really, really hard. And in fact, that's why I want to provide the inspiration so that we can all get through those hard things to get the information to get to the good stuff, right? So that's why we're here. Thank you for being here with us. All right. Because it's Monday, we like to start off with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani nani are those experts talking about? Why do they need to use these terms? Are they just trying to make us feel stupid? Because sometimes it feels like that, does it not? Yeah, okay. So here's one, and here's one of the things that, I was one of those moms that I was like, I am not participating in that jargon. I am already over the age of 40. I do not need to learn something all new, right? I was very resistant. And then I went, that gets in the way of my son's progress. And then I had to learn these terms. And one of the things I learned is that if you just drop a jargon term here and there are very specific ones, and this is a good one, you just drop it here and there, and then people go, oh, well, apparently she knows what she's talking about, right? And maybe you don't, but this one is one that'll make the people that are like trying to impress you at school step down a little bit and go, oh, okay, well, that's a person who is familiar with what's going on. Okay, so this is not for the faint of heart. It's called Premack's principle. Okay, so when you're talking and you might be talking about something and you just be like, well, Premack principle. And then and some people go, yes, Premack principle. And other people will go, and then you see them taking out their phone and looking it up. But this is a lot of what we talk about. I just don't throw this term at you all over again. So let's take a look at our actual definition. Let's see if we can make some fun of it, and then we'll give you a working definition. Premack's principle, also referred to as the relativity theory of reinforcement, oh gag me, suggests that more probable behaviors will reinforce less probable behaviors. Okay, this is like a math equation for me. It's like a logic. Wait, more probable behaviors will reinforce less probable behaviors? What exactly are we talking about here? So let's take a look at our working definition. Premack's principle: when we make a desirable behavior the reward for doing something less desirable in order to make the less desirable behavior more likely to happen. All right, that's still hard. That's not even a good one. I'm sure a BCBA wrote that for me. Right? Let's get down to the brass tacks. If we want something to happen and we want it to be more likely to happen, and we pair it with something that is really wonderful and desirable, then it is more likely for the other thing to happen. So if every time we take a child swimming, which is something that they like to do, we pair that with something else, then that behavior is going to be more likely to happen because the other thing happened. Does that make sense? And I know BCBAs are everywhere swooning going, Shannon, I don't think that's exactly it, but let's start with like the place where we begin to understand these things. So let's go back over it now that we've sort of put it in a context. When we make a desirable behavior the reward for doing something less desirable in order to make the less desirable behavior more likely to happen. So we love swimming, right? And we know that that's a desirable behavior. And so I was saying something happens after swimming. Let's switch it so it's a little bit easier to understand that, let's say we have to do our multiplication tables and we have to do them a certain number of times because there's a certain grade where they have to do that a certain number of times. And maybe they don't love multiplication tables, but every time we do multiplication tables and we get it right, we go, it's time to go swimming, and swimming is the desirable thing, then we are more likely to have a good experience, more likely to want to do the multiplication tables, more likely to do well at it, more likely to get them right because we know that the reward for it is that we get to go swimming. That makes a little bit better sense, doesn't it? I may have confused you in the beginning, but Premack's principle is that if there is a desirable thing that, is attached to this, then this is more likely to happen. Okay, makes sense? That's the Premack principle. Okay, so with that in mind, let's move to our question of the day, which is, how do you reward yourself? What are the rewards that you give yourself? You do a lot of hard things every day. I know. You do a lot of hard things every day. What are the rewards that you give yourself? I tell you, this is the beginning. I know we're getting close to that where you're going to make New Year's resolutions and stuff, but if you don't figure out this, it's kind of like if you think about the things in your life, you're like, why have there been certain New Year's resolutions that I did? Why am I successful in this arena, but I'm not successful here? And I'll tell you that ABA people will tell all of us that it's because we haven't solved this. Are you really rewarding the success and the attempt to do that other thing? So if you're thing, your New Year's resolution is that you want to exercise a certain amount every day, what's the reward that you give yourself for it? Because if you just assume that, well, exercise is its own reward, how's that working? I can tell you how it's working for me. Right? There are other things, honestly, when I look at the things where I'm successful, a lot of times it's because there's a reward built into it for me, right? That I don't have to walk out of my way to do. And that for other things that are not the preferable thing, like the exercise, I got to exercise Premack's principle, and I have to make sure that there is a reward so that that behavior is more likely to happen. See how I brought that back around to Premack's principle? So how do you reward yourself? And when do you reward yourself? And what aren't you rewarding yourself for? Okay, now we got to think about that, right? But we'll talk more about that, because honestly, if you could be happier and doing more of the things that you want to be able to do, that would be a good equation, right? And if you felt rewarded for doing it, so much the better. Then it would all cook with gas. And by the way, we do this with our kiddos. We don't ask our kiddos to do hard things without giving them a meaningful, substantive reward. If we do, we're not going to see the same level of progress. We've got to give that reward to them, and it has to be a meaningful reward. That is how we make progress, and that is how our kids become willing to work on things that are hard for them. Oh my gosh, when I watch our kiddos who have apraxia and watch them fight, they want to be able to say the word, but it's hard. It's like some of the hardest work that there is on this planet for them to be able to make that connection, to get that sound out, right? We have to make that rewarding for them. It's unconscionable to have them work that hard and not give them a reward. We got to do that for ourselves as well. Okay, so how do you reward yourself? Do we need to tweak that? Do we need to tweak when it happens, how it happens? Let's think about it. And then we always have a topic of the week. And our topic this week, which I happen to really love, it's a great one for the last week of the show for this year, is where attention goes, energy flows. So whatever you decide to pay attention to for the next 2 weeks, that's the thing that's going to get that if you're saying, I want to pay attention to this, that's what's going to get energy. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to get progress, but maybe it'll get a different, a different workflow for it, or maybe you'll think of it in a different way, and maybe the progress will come later. But sometimes that's the phase, the creative phase that it needs to be in. So if you're like, my garage, it's a mess. And if you were to, make a little picture for yourself and set it on your desk with your picture of your organized garage, I guarantee you, your garage is much more likely to get organized quicker if you put that level of attention to it, where it popped up on your screen every day or whatever, right? The things that we pay attention to and energy flows into them, those are the things that make up our days and our lives. So what are you paying attention to? Where would you like energy to flow? What kinds of things, I talk to parents every single day and I go, what do you want for your child? What do you want them to be able to do? Are we focused on that? Have you talked to your ABA provider about that? Like, what's the part of your day that's the hardest? What if we just put attention there? Like, if morning and the morning routine and getting out the door is the hardest part of the day, what if we just said, everything else is what it is, but let's put some attention into this. And, just said, we're going to think about this, we're going to plan about this, eventually you'll come up with solutions, and maybe they're not the solution. Maybe you got to try something and then go, no, that wasn't it. That didn't help. Now we try this, right? That's called problem solving. But if you put the attention there, the energy flows there, you will solve some portion of it, and you'll solve it faster because you're paying attention to it. It's just a thing. We're going to talk more about it. Don't get stressed. It's a good thing. Okay, we have got to take a break because we're going to come back with the amazing Bonnie Yates, special education attorney, and she's going to be answering your questions, so don't go anywhere. Stick with us.
Hey, I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Parent to parent, having a compliant child is one of the greatest things on earth. But frequently we ask ourselves, why doesn't my child listen? Well, here are some tips to help us to get a listening, happy, compliant child. First, we want to make sure that we make compliance worthwhile. Whenever your child does something that's compliant, make sure that you praise them and heap rewards on them that are meaningful to them, things they really want. One of the things that we have to be mindful of is that if the child isn't compliant, we have to praise more often. Just heap it on. If you say to yourself, there's nothing to praise, they're not doing anything that I want them to do, then ask them to do something that they already want to do. This is a really tricky way of being able to praise them. And then, of course, the last thing that we want to do is catch them doing good things when they least suspect it. And make sure you heap that praise on, because having a compliant child is one of the best things in life. Token economies are a great way to get to good behavior with your child. Welcome back to Autism Live. We are so lucky that we get to welcome back to the show Bonnie Yates, special education attorney. Bonnie is joining us from the law firm of Tollner and, is it Tollner and Associates, Bonnie? Tollner Law Offices. We're so thrilled that she is here with us. And Bonnie, talk to us a little bit about Tollner Law Offices.
Okay, well, the thing that was supposed to happen today that's going to happen in the future is that David Tollner, who started Tollner Law Offices, is going to talk to you guys about how, well, he's going to talk to you about addendum IEPs and how parents can use them to get a satisfactory program for their kids. And in general, he's a strategy guy. He says, you know, I'm good at identifying what the target is and how to get there. But he's also like a chess player about all this. I'm learning. So, you know, he's got a really good way that he does the cases. It's efficient and it also works. And so he'll be coming on the air to talk to you about how they like to work behind the scenes with clients and sort of set the district up for some surprises. Anyway, today though, I'm going to be talking to you about educational impact, but before I do that, I'm just to say that the attorney disclaimer is that I'm answering general questions under California law and federal law. for your specific issues, if you're in Northern or Southern California, we suggest you have an intake with us. If you are in another state, we direct you to counsel of parent attorneys and advocates if you need to talk to a lawyer. And then finally was the contact information for the firm. It's Tollner, Tollner, law offices. You can go to the website for the contact information. And there are now offices in San Jose, El Segundo, and Irvine. So that was a lot. I got to streamline that. But I'm all worked up today because I have a case that involves a district trying to take a student with autism and make him ineligible for any services.
Wow.
And I think what's going on is that because he's academically successful and he has a high IQ and he's well behaved in class, they think that his autism isn't having any impact, any educational impact on him. So we are going to talk about how it could be possible that you could have a diagnosis of autism and not qualify for an IEP. That's what I want to talk about, because that's what I've been researching and thinking about and talking to professionals about. So can we do a little of that?
Absolutely, because we're getting more and more of these questions too from parents that are saying, my child has a diagnosis, but they're telling me that we're not getting any services, that they don't qualify. And, yes, please help us, Bonnie.
Okay, so the first thing is, where's my sheet on this? The first question when you have a disability is whether or not that you have to have the qualifying symptoms of autism in California under 5 California Code of Regulations 3030, which I have here somewhere and I want to read it to you. You have to show the following autism in California. And the reason we're talking about California is because there's it's left to the states one by one to set up their own definition of educational impact. So as of July 1, 2014, the first part of this is autism means a developmental disability significantly affecting verbal and nonverbal communication and social interaction, generally evident before age 3 and adversely affecting a child's educational performance. So that's where we get that language about educational performance. It goes on to say other characteristics often associated with autism are engagement in repetitive activities and stereotype movements, resistance to environmental change or change in daily routines, and unusual responses to sensory experiences. So I went into this meeting thinking, this is crazy. How can people not understand how this child's autism has an impact on his functioning at school? But as I got into the law more and I listened to what the teaching staff was saying, I'm still kind of wrestling with whether this is just the district trying to reduce its caseload by kicking a high-functioning autistic kid off of the rolls, or whether they really believe that because the student meets or exceeds academic standards in his classroom, that therefore his autism doesn't have an educational impact. So in researching this, I learned that it's left up to the states to adopt their own definition of what educational impact is, and only 9 states have, and California has not. And one of the things that was really surprising to me was like to see a state like Vermont that you sort of think of as liberal, although I don't really think that's accurate. They have a definition of educational impact that's very like, reading, writing, arithmetic. California doesn't have a definition. And so where we end up then is we look to federal law for guidance, and these things are going to be on a case-by-case basis. So putting myself in the shoes of the school professionals, I think my job at this meeting is going to be to explain to them why it would be possible for somebody to be academically successful but still have needs that had to be addressed through special education because they had an educational impact. And the difficulty is you need someone on your team that really understands autism well and can explain how the disability ramifies for someone who is socially unsophisticated and maybe not that successful, and so on. And their attitude kind of, I think, is, well, if he gets all his classwork done and when he goes out on the playground, he makes some minimal attempts to initially engage with kids, even if he can't sustain those initiations, then we don't think he needs an IEP. So I was, I'm going to be I brought in an expert who works with him outside of school, and I'm going to be bringing in more to make my showing of educational impact. But what I wanted to tell you was I did find a definition of how we're supposed to handle the question of educational impact in California, and that's under federal law. There's something called the Office of Special Education Programs. They work for the Federal Department of Education, and so they rendered an opinion about how all this should be handled under federal law, and they cited me to 2 cases in our circuit, the Ninth Circuit, which also addresses. So let's talk about what the federal government had to say about educational impact. So most of the cases are eligibility cases, and the district will be trying to say that a student's emotional disturbance doesn't have an impact on educational performance. There are also some cases involving specific learning disability and autism, but autism in California, there hasn't really been a definitive recent case. So this letter, which I'm going to read to you from, is from OSEP, the Office of Special Education Programs. It's from something called Letter to Clark, March 2007, Letter to Clark. And basically, the question that they were asked was whether a person with a speech-language impediment who passes all his courses and advances from grade to grade can't be eligible for special education. And what they went on to say was that eligibility and services must be made on a case-by-case basis, and that the regulations to IDEA 2004 instruct the districts to use a variety of assessment tools, not just one, to gather functional, developmental, and academic information about a student in order to figure out what their unique needs are. And so because of that, OSEP concluded that the question of educational impact would include adaptive behavior and so on, and not just academic information. So the question posed was, what constitutes an educational impact? The answer is educational performance, as used in the IDEA and its implementing regulations, is not limited to academic performance. Whether a speech and language impairment adversely affects a child's educational performance must be determined on a case-by-case basis, depending on the unique needs of a particular child, and not based only on discrepancies in age or grade performance in academic subject areas. In conducting an evaluation, the public agency must use a variety of assessment tools and strategies to gather relevant functional, developmental, and academic information. Therefore, the IDEA and the regulations clearly establish that the determination about whether a child is a child with a disability and is not limited to information about the child's academic performance. Furthermore, 34 Code of Federal Regulations, Section 300.101C states that each state must ensure that a free appropriate public education is available to any individual child with a disability who needs special education and related services, even though the child has not failed or been retained in a course or grade and is advancing from grade to grade. So the opinion from OSAP cited two cases that are both in our circuit and the Ninth Circuit. One is called County of San Diego versus Special Education Hearing Office, and the other one is Seattle School District Number 1 versus BS. So Seattle, Washington is within our circuit here, our federal circuit, which includes Hawaii, Washington, Idaho, Oregon, California. So,
Which circuit is that, Bonnie? Is that the Ninth Circuit? It's not, isn't it?
No, that is the ninth.
It is the Ninth. So
I looked at those cases to see what they added to the mix and discovered that they were positive for us. So the first one, which was the, was the Seattle case. That student had emotional disturbance, and she was not eligible for special education. She displayed behaviors, physical and verbal aggression, lying, stealing, oppositional defiant disorder. She was expelled. She was made eligible under emotional disturbance, even though she had age-appropriate academic scores, because she had behavior that adversely impacted her educational performance. Quote, everyone agrees that AS was bright, exceptionally bright, and thus was able to test appropriately on standardized tests. This is not the sine qua non of educational benefit, however. The term unique educational needs shall be broadly construed to include the handicapped child's academic, social health, emotional, communicative, physical, and vocational needs. So that's really where we need to be going with this, is we need to show how the autism, in this case, is affecting his social, health, emotional, communicative, physical, and vocational needs. I'm certainly not going to be able to get very far with his academic work because they're reporting him as, doing wonderfully on everything. So then the County of San Diego case essentially says that you have to consider, let me just read the quote. When determining whether a child's educational performance was adversely affected by the child's emotional condition, the federal appellate court governing California requires that consideration also be given to a student's need for behavioral and emotional growth. The law does not require poor standardized test scores in order to find an adverse effect on educational performance. So I am going to be going back and listening to the psychologist's report and seeing how she makes the case that this doesn't have an impact on educational performance. That's what I'll be doing, and it's going to take some doing, so I can update you about that. But anyway, that's why you get into the discussion about whether or not somebody with autism has an idea qualifying disability.
So
It's
I have a couple of questions, because here's what bothers me about this, and you know that I'm not a legal mind and I count on you to explain things to me. So having that asterisk there. But it's the Ninth Circuit, and that's why I asked you which circuit it is. Isn't it the Ninth Circuit that had made a ruling that the Supreme Court overruled in 2017 and said that what they were doing and what the Ninth Circuit had agreed to was de minimis, the absolute
You're
minimum.
talking about Andrew.
But so then the Supreme Court.
Well, let me clarify. You're talking about Andrew F., correct?
I don't know, because I just know that there was a case and that the Supreme Court came back, overturned the Ninth Circuit, and said de minimis is not enough.
Okay, well, I think Andrew F. is from Texas, so maybe I'm not sure what you're referring to. Andrew F. said that progress has to be based on the child's unique circumstances, and the IEP has to be appropriately ambitious. I'm not understanding from my research that there's a recent Supreme Court case that deals with this question.
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't exactly, because it just says de minimis is not enough. That was part of the decision
But
in special
Shannon,
education.
we're not talking about idea progress. We're talking about ability to even have an IEP.
Right.
We're talking about eligibility.
Right, but here's why, because I was starting someplace, I'm going someplace. See if you can follow my not legal mind. But it seems like to me that, and I know that it's like this question of are they eligible? But part of what IDEA says is that it is it's to help individuals educationally, but also to set them up for success in their life. And I know it's sort of reverse engineering, but if the thing that you're trying to make yourself eligible for says, we're giving you, what our purpose is to help you with academic, but also to set you up for the rest of your life, then saying that you're ineligible for it because we don't have to work on educational things seems wrong to me.
Well, it is wrong, and I think we need a clear decision about the relationship between IDEA 2004 and this question of educational impact. Because IDEA 2004 said, hey, listen, some of the most important stuff a student's going to do is graduate and grow up and go out into the community and be employable and exercise his own legal rights. And you don't get there without an IEP that gives you help in these other areas, because I think the students that are high functioning do tend to get, their needs get minimized by the teachers. If you don't address their autism, I think the concern is they're going to develop huge emotional problems and anxiety and coping problems in middle school and high school, where they're not in kind of the more sheltered cocoon of the elementary school.
Well, and in fact, when they get into those grades and eventually they have an individual transition plan to go from the IEP to their life after school, part of what they're working on in the ITP is not, it's like, what is your support system going to be? Where are you going to live? Where are you going to work? And who are the people who are going to support you to do that? But if we have denied them the right to that plan by saying that they were ineligible because of education, to me, that feels like de minimis. If the plan is to set you up for educational, access to education and the rest of your life, and we said we're denying you because you don't need the education piece, to me, that's de minimis. That's where I was going with that whole argument.
The de minimis has nothing to do with eligibility. De minimis has to do with when you are eligible, what standard is the district held to when it writes an IEP.
Sure.
And it evaluates annual performance. But what you're saying is that the education of a person that's under 18 should be done with the idea in mind that he's going to have an ITP and he's going to go out into the big world and he's going to need skills to be successful. And I absolutely agree with that. And when I bookend it, shortcut it, what I say is, look, it's not enough to get the math problem right. You got to be able to get into the job interview and get the gig,
Yes.
So I'm wanting to make people aware of where the eligibility definition is for autism and how the district is using it against children that are higher functioning and are doing okay academically. I also think that sometimes the okay academically might be better revealed by some kind of outside objective testing, as opposed to, there's lots of ways to control results in the classroom. Yeah. And there's lots of evidence that the grading is very subjective. Yeah. But I think my task now in this case is to try to educate this IEP team about the fact that, this student may look better to you than a lot of other kids you've seen, but that isn't really the criteria.
Right.
And when they write a report and they make a determination about whether or not the disability affects educational performance, they have to be able to tell you what definition they are using for educational performance. And this psychologist was not prepared for this, because when she walked in and I said, what's the definition of educational performance you're using? She said, go back to 5 CCR 3030. I mean, she didn't say it like that, but she said, I'm using the definition of educational performance that you see when you look at the statute in California that defines autism as a qualifying disability. The problem with that was that the statute says nothing about what the definition of educational performance is. It just says that autism means a developmental disability that significantly affects a child's educational performance. So it's not really going to work for her to go back to her drawing board and come into the meeting next time and say, well, hey, I know last time it seemed like when I did this, I didn't use a definition of educational performance, but actually I really did, and here's what it is. That's not going to fly with me.
No.
Anyway,
Bonnie's on the job. Bonnie's on the case, literally.
that's where we are, and yeah, to me, it's a hot issue.
It's a very hot issue because I'll tell you, we see this not only in the school, but we see this in other environments. We had a case of a young girl with autism who went missing here in Southern California. And of course, we have the Silver Law in place now that includes, the verbiage of it includes individuals. It can include individuals on the spectrum if they are not able to make decisions for themselves, so that if they go missing, we can speed up the missing person thing and have it be by a different criteria. Well, so this young teenage girl went missing and the police were not activating the Silver Alert. And I was on the phone with them saying, on behalf of the mom, saying, no, we've been through this before. Here's what you need to know. Here's what you need to know about it. And the police officer was saying, I have the young girl's phone. She's able to text. Therefore, I don't think she qualifies for this. And I was like, let me explain to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure that she can text, but that does not mean that she has the ability to discern whether someone is a safe person or not.
Yeah, exactly.
And he wasn't getting it. He was like, since she can text, she must be fine.
I know that we need to wrap up, but what I want to say is I believed that there was a lot of publicity about the 1987 study at UCLA about autism, and that as parents got educated about autism and professionals did, that we sort of have this collective body of knowledge about what autism is and how it manifests, and that the presentation can be subtle but disabling, quite disabling.
Yeah.
And I feel like now what's going on is parents are very vulnerable. They may end up in no ABA program for early intervention. They may end up in an ABA program that's basically being run by the insurance company, and all the parents are getting is parent training. And they don't even know that autism treatment is actually direct one-to-one therapy along with other things. And so what I'm seeing now is a lot of kids, it's not that they aren't eligible. They're eligible. The district convinces the parent that they don't need more than a paraprofessional. They probably had very good prospects when they were a pre-kindergartner or kindergartner. Now they're 12 or 13, and the ramifications of not properly addressing their autism in the classroom is showing up in terms of behavioral problems, issues with bullying, reading comprehension problems, and just, generally not looking as good as I thought they were going to look when in kindergarten, that student had a lot of, what's the right word, characteristics that made him look like he could very successfully, negotiate his landscape. He just needed some intensive
Right.
teaching. So I'm not really saying that well, but my point is, if people are concerned about students being successful in school and not being alienated and feeling a part of things, we got to take care of them.
That's right.
So many kids are developing emotional problems because of the way the districts are handling their autism. That I had somebody tell me, frankly, I'd rather deal with the autism than the emotional symptoms. They become really bad. They sometimes rise to the level that the student can't go to school anymore because they're so anxious.
Yeah, I had a friend who is a BCBA who said to me, what we see is that we've learned so much about how to help build skills and diminish skills, but in helping an individual go from the world of autism that they were in into being in our world, it is unconscionable if we don't take care of that individual and the anxiety that they will now feel being in our world. That's the piece of the puzzle that a lot of ABA providers, don't necessarily get at, and that we as a community have to take responsibility for that and rise to the level and occasion that we set up for these individuals. We brought them into our world. We did that. And now we have to make sure that they have everything that they need to be happy and successful in our world. And I think that we're not anywhere near there yet. But it is our responsibility to, it's wonderful how much progress our kiddos can make. And I think the school is going, oh, good, you're doing so well, we won't have to stick with this. But there's a piece that they're missing. And as parents and advocates and you as a lawyer, we need to keep pushing the boundaries on this so that we make sure that they are well taken care of.
Well, it's the same question you always have with people that are less fortunate. Are you going to let them sleep under bridges, or are you going to, try to help them for the reason that you don't want the emergency rooms to be full of sick people when you take your little baby there,
Yeah.
It's really not, it's really, self-interested to look after other people.
Yeah.
It's not, it's how we treat our very young and how we treat our very old and how we treat disabled people. We all know the rules about that. I mean, certain things don't change over time. And the thing about autism, the flip side of autism, is unlike some of the other disabilities, these people can have really successful outcomes and they can have a meaningful life, and they cannot be in an institutional program from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night because their society's, cast-offs. So we haven't touched at all on the difficulties in getting jobs for people with autism. That's another conversation.
Yeah.
But the idea that these people are going to learn from their environment and we don't need to teach the soft skills is not borne out by what we know about autism.
There we go. Well, a very inspirational talk, Miss Bonnie. We appreciate you and the time that you're here with us, and we want to thank Tollner Law Offices. Do you want to give their information again?
Tollner Law Offices is on the web. You can Google Tollner Law Offices and get the various phone numbers. And if you're in Southern California or Northern California and you want to have a consultation with an attorney about your child's particular case, you can contact me or you can contact Tollner San Jose and we'll set something up for you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie, for being with us. And Bonnie will be back with us next week. I forgot to mention we'd have one more show on the 23rd, and then you will be the last show of the 2019, Miss Bonnie.
Okay. All right.
That's we consider that an honor.
Well, look, every day above ground is an honor, and we'll answer your questions. There were a lot of them.
Yes.
They're good ones. We'll answer them next week.
Okay. Thank you so much,
you.
Bonnie.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
That was the amazing Bonnie Yates again from Tollner Law Offices answering your questions. You can when you guys send me questions that are of a legal nature, I put them to the side and put them together week by week. So feel free to be writing those in whenever you have those. All right, we're going to take a break and then we're going to come back and finish out the show. Stick with us.
Just go like this. Can you see me? Puedes mirarme aquí? Okay. Hi, I'm Rebecca Ishida. Say hi, Ethan. Hi. My son was diagnosed with autism in November 2004. With Ethan, almost immediately, we noticed things that were troublesome, that he just didn't sleep. He would vomit in the crib. There were a lot of sensory issues.
Then he'd have like 20 of the trains lined up, and if you came in and took one train out, just meltdown completely. Guttural instinct is to think that there's nothing wrong. Who wants to look at their child and go, there's something wrong with that child? You don't. You always want to see the best in your child.
Will my kid be able to go to school? Will he interact with his peers? Will he be able to have a healthy relationship? Will he get married? I really thought that autism was like a death sentence. A lot of hope was given to me through CARD. This was my third agency and the best agency we had. And there was no way in the world I was going to give up CARD because of the gains I saw Ethan was having.
Yeah, you did it!
And I remember when Doreen saw us for the evaluation, she says, but by the time he's 6, he will be recovered. And that's exactly what happened.
I'll fix that.
Hello and welcome back to Autism Live. We're finishing up the show. I was saying wiping up the show. We don't need to wipe it up. It's not a mess. But a couple of things that I want to talk to you about coming this week. So tomorrow we have a best of episode for you that we're really excited about. On Wednesday, I am told that we have Dr. Doreen Grant-Bichet. It will be her last show of the 2019 season. So I'm told that we have her. We'll give you minute by minute update about that. If that changes, you know that sometimes she gets called away, but I am told that we have her on Wednesday. On Thursday, this is exciting because we've had her on several times, but not in a while. Dr. Sienna Greener-Wooten is scheduled to be with us on Thursday to answer some of your questions, and I'm really excited about that. She is amazing. She heads up the quality assurance portion of the clinical arm of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. She has held many different positions at her at CARD, and in the beginning, she was the person who did our intake. When we came in with our son, she was the first person that I sat down and talked with, and she asked me the questions and talked and got me ready for my time at CARD. And she was the person who she was the overseer for all the supervisors then. So, you know, we had our supervisor who was amazing, and then Dr. Sienna Greener-Wooten also, you know, had eyes on our case. She is the one who, at a certain point, Jem came in and he was having a day. And she happened to be there, and she was like, "What's going on?" And of course, she had known him when he was 2.5 and had no words. And she was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he was like, "I don't want to do this anymore." And she said, "Great, you don't have to do this anymore. Here are the 5 things we're trying to teach you. And as soon as you get these 5 things, we'll fade away and you can go play with your friend." Because he was like, she said, "Okay, well, what's going on? You know, like, why don't you want to do this anymore?" And he said, "Because I just want to be with my friends." And she was like, "That's a cool reason to do that. Here are the 5 things that you have left to learn." And he was like, "Really? That's all I have to know is those 5 things, and then I don't have to do this anymore?" And she was like, "Yeah, that's it." And together, she and Jem sat down and made a plan of how, like the schedule of how he was going to show her that he knew how to do those things. So it was this thing where he would have to demonstrate it 2 days in a row that he could do these 5 things. And if he could, the 3rd day, canceled, which was super awesome. And within, I would say 6 weeks, he was done. He was done. And anyway, I adore her. And my son adored her. And I loved that interaction because he would still be in therapy. I would still be like, because, you know, there's still things to work on. I need to be in ABA therapy, let's be honest, right? So you don't, sometimes as a parent, I mean, I certainly didn't know when do we stop this. You count on your experts. They had already told me 6 months before that he was at the end. So I already knew that at a certain point, but but then having him voice it and having her very clearly say, we can wrap this right up. Here are the 5 things you're still shaky on. And if we can get those things. And then he was motivated. He was like, oh, then let's do those. I want to do that. So she's going to be with us on Thursday. And then on Friday, we have Vince Redmond with us. He's licensed marriage and family therapist. He's going to be with us. And we'll let you know what we're going to be talking about on Friday, but I have some ideas what we might want to talk about with Vince Redmond. So Vince, like I said, is a licensed marriage and family therapist, but he also previously was a therapist. So here's what you may not know. When about 10 years ago, Card had a documentary that was out that's still available. I think it's on Netflix, and it's called Recovered. Journeys through the autism spectrum. And what it did was it focused on 4 kiddos on the autism spectrum. And it showed video of them when they were much younger, when they were first starting ABA therapy, but then it dropped in to talk to them when they were teenagers. Amazing, right? 4 kids and their moms. And, you may not realize this, but Bonnie Yates is in that movie as a much younger mom. Just going to throw that out there. So in any case, on one of the cases, 3 of them are young men and 1 is a girl, Jana. And the main therapist on her team was Vince Redmond. And so you see him being this young, like 19, 20, 21-year-old young man working with this 4-year-old girl, Jana. And then you get to see them when he's an older, more experienced therapist and she's 16 years old, and the relationship that they have, because they are still good friends. And so if you've watched the show before and seen Vince, to see him as that young man working with her as a therapist, I don't know, it's just like really, it's like time flies and we grow up, kind of thing. But then you have a better appreciation for when he explains, like, the challenges that parents and families go through. He gets it. I mean, he was there. He's watched so many families go through that. He understands how hard an ABA program can be for a family, but how pivotal and important it is. I've shared before that my husband and I, tried to go to couples therapy while we were in ABA because I had a nervous breakdown. I mean, let's not even pussyfoot around it. I fell apart and couldn't be outside my house, couldn't drive my car, right? We needed to go for therapy. And eventually I went alone and got cognitive behavioral therapy because I was a mess. Because it's hard. And when I say to people, oh yeah, this is hard, I'm not whistling Dixie, right? So we went to the couples therapist and I was like, I'm this and I'm stressed about this. And she was taking notes thoughtfully the whole time. And, as a wife, my fantasy was that at the end she was going to say, well, it's all his fault. And point at my husband, right? That's what she was going to do. And I knew enough about therapy to know that it was just as likely that she was going to say it was all my fault, or that, hopefully she was going to say that we needed to work through some things together because we have this other thing going on that, was taxing us. No, what she did was she said, well, I've taken all the notes and it seems like the stressor here is ABA. I think you should stop that. And we both looked at each other and we were like, oh, is that what you have for us? Thank you, we're done. And we started packing. She was like, what happened? And we both said, oh, we're not stopping ABA. Yeah, it's hard, but this is the thing that's going to save our lives, that is saving our lives. And she was like, but if it's that hard, no. And so this is what I love about Vince, is that Vince is never going to say that to a family. He's never going to say, well, then maybe you should stop the ABA therapy. The thing that ultimately is going to help you, it's hard, so let's stop it. No. He's going to come up with strategies for how you can mitigate the hard to be able to stay sane while you're doing it. That's what Vince does. So that's just one of the myriads of reasons why I adore him. So that is what is happening the rest of this week. Then we will be back the week after with one show on Monday, on the 23rd of December, with Bonnie Yates, answering the questions that we did not get to today. And then it's going to be all repeats for basically 2 weeks because we're taking a little time off, because you can see that Mama needs some time off. right? And everybody needs to take a little. But I don't want you to think that you're in this alone during that time period. There will still be people here, and you can still write in, and there's still the potential to get your questions answered. And there's tons of video that we have done to keep you inspired and keep you informed, right? And then we'll be back in the new year with some changes, some things that you guys have asked for, some things that we want to bring you, things that we think are going to help, and new ways, new screens on which to watch Autism Live that might prove easier for you. So thrilled about all of that. We got some really good stuff in the works. More information, more inspiration, right? Isn't that the thing? All right, so we hope that you will continue to join us this week. We're about out of time. I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. It means so much to me to be on this journey with you. It is such a privilege to be here with you. So I will see you back here tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.